2 years ago, you found out you were underpaid. You did something about it. You left. Today, you're sitting on the other side of the desk, and a woman named Rosa is asking you the same question you once asked. And you already know the answer is no. You didn't want to be a manager. That's what you told people. Anyway, back when it was still hypothetical. You said you liked the work. You said you didn't want to spend your life in meetings about the work instead of doing it. Both of those things were true, and neither of them was the reason. The reason was that you'd watched your last manager say, "I wish you'd said something sooner," and you had promised yourself you would never be the man who said that sentence. Then they offered it. Team lead. 11,000 more and a title with a noun in it. You took it in under a minute. You want to be honest about that part? There was no agonizing. Somebody offered you money and standing, and you said yes before your coffee got cold. The first 2 months were fine. Better than fine. You were good at it in ways that surprised you. You noticed when someone was drowning, you gave credit in writing, you remembered who had a kid with a recital. Small things. You thought, maybe naively, that being decent was most of the job. Then March came, and with it, the comp cycle, and you learned what the job actually was. Rosa had been there 4 years. She ran intake. Not officially. Officially, she was a coordinator, which is one of those words that means does everything and is paid for a portion of it. But when the system broke at 6 p.m. on a Friday, it was Rosa who fixed it. And everybody in the building knew that, and nobody had ever written it down anywhere that counted. She came to you in February. Not aggressive, almost apologetic, which is the part that stayed with you. She had a folder, an actual paper folder, because she'd printed things out, because she'd thought it needed to look serious. She'd written down every project, every weekend, the client that stayed. The number at the bottom was not an outrageous number. It was, if anything, a shy number. The kind you write when you've talked yourself down twice before walking in. And you looked at it and you knew immediately, with total certainty, that she was right. You said, "Let me take this up." You meant it. That's the thing. You were not managing her. You were not buying time. You walked into that meeting genuinely believing you were going to win. The band was set above you. You'd heard that phrase before, from the other side, and you'd assumed it was something managers said when they didn't want to fight. It isn't. It's a real structure. There is a spreadsheet, and it has ranges in it, and the ranges were built by people who have never met Rosa and never will. You made the case anyway. You brought her folder. You thought, pretty good. You had specifics, you had the retention argument, you had the number. The director listened. He was not a monster. He nodded at the right places. And then he explained, patiently, the way you'd explain a rule to a child who isn't in trouble, that moving Rosa would break the band for the whole coordinator level, and that if he did it for her, he'd have to do it for 11 other people, and that there was no version of this year where that happened. He said, "I can do 3%. You said 3% is $1,400. He said, "I know. And here's the part you didn't expect. He wasn't lying either. He was also in a room, being told a number by someone above him. There was no villain anywhere in this building. There was just a structure, and everyone in it was a decent person explaining why nothing could change. You had 4 days before you had to tell her. You spent them writing the sentence, rewriting it. You wanted to find the version that was honest and kind at the same time, and every draft was one or the other. You could tell her the truth. The system does not have a way to pay you what you're worth, and it isn't going to get one. That was honest. It was also, functionally, telling her to leave, and you knew, because you'd been her, that the truth is what she actually needed. Or you could tell her the other thing, the soft one. We're working on it. There's a review in Q3. I'm advocating for you. All technically true. All designed to keep her in the chair. You want to know which one you said? You said the second one. Not all of it. You didn't lie outright. You never said a number was coming. But you shaped it. You let review in Q3 sit there doing work you knew it couldn't do. You watched her face relax, just slightly, and you felt the relief in your own chest. And the relief was the worst part, because it was yours and not hers. She said, "Thank you." She meant it. You went back to your desk and you sat there for a while, not doing anything, in an office that had that 4 o'clock sound. She stayed 11 months. She got the 3%. She got a card at Christmas. In October, a competitor called her, the way they call everyone eventually, and she took it. And the raise she got by leaving was almost exactly the number in the folder. You wrote her a reference, and you meant every word of it. Her last day, she hugged you and said you were the best manager she'd ever had. And you stood in the parking lot afterward, feeling something that took you a long time to name. It wasn't guilt, exactly. Guilt is for things you did wrong. It was closer to understanding. Because you finally got it. The thing you'd been so angry about 2 years earlier. Your old manager, the one who said, "I wish you'd said something sooner," he hadn't been careless. He'd been exactly where you were now. He'd probably gone upstairs for you too. He'd probably come back with 6,000 and delivered it like good news because he'd fought for it, and that was all he had. And you'd spent 2 years thinking he was the problem. He wasn't the problem. He was just the last person in the chain who had a face. You're still there. That's not the ending anyone wants. There's a version of this where you resign on principle, and it's a better story, and it isn't what happened. What happened is smaller. The next time somebody came to you with a folder, you didn't say, "Let me take this up." You said, "I'll take it up, and I want to tell you what I think will happen, because I think you should hear it from me before you decide anything." And then you told them the truth. The whole shape of it. The band, the room upstairs, what the number would realistically be, and what people in their role were getting paid at other companies. Because you'd looked it up before the meeting. 2 of them left within the year. That is, by every measure the company tracks, a failure. Attrition on your team went up. Somebody asked you about it in a review. But you'd stopped being the last person in the chain with a face. You'd become the person who handed them the map on the way out. You don't know if that's enough. Most days you don't think it is. It's just the only part of this that was ever actually yours.